Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. It's your host with the most, Chris. Hope everyone's having a fantastic day today. I got on my CeeDee Lamb jersey for today's episode. Got a little bit of talk about a little bit of Cowboy stuff going on too, and just some other stuff like that. So you guys, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're not, if you're listening to this on either Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, I'm on all three. If you can't see this, but if you're on YouTube and you can clearly see this, the room is a lot more empty than it was last episode. Like I mentioned in the last episode, I am in the middle of a move right now, so the room is going to be more and more empty probably. By next week, this whole area is going to be just gone whenever I shoot the next episode for the podcast. So just kind of, it's going to be a little blank for a while. So because I am in the middle of a move, I'm kind of slowly getting bigger stuff out, kind of slowly moving out of this room. So a lot of, it's going to be real empty probably in the next episode. And then probably the episode after that, I will be somewhere else. So then you guys can see, where I'm going to be. Probably the new setup if I can make a new setup. It's going to be interesting to see what I'm going to do going forward since I am moving out of this place into somewhere else. But I'm very excited for it, and hopefully you guys are excited for it too. But just like I said, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts or Amazon Music, the room is getting more and more empty. So more and more kind of just white walls everywhere, a little bit of stuff, kind of in certain places, or boxes if you guys see boxes. So kind of keep that in mind as we go through these next two episodes with me in the middle of a move. So stuff is slowly going to be more and more clear, and hopefully we can get through this, pretty sound and smoothly, and then I can get the new setup going for you guys. But enough talking about my moving stuff. Let's get straight into the episode. So first off, before we go into a lot of NFL topics going on right now, let's start off with another great time of the year. It holds near and dear to everybody's heart. Fantasy football is about to begin soon. I'm very excited. I hope all of y'all are excited for fantasy football. Hope you guys are watching the mock fantasy drafts, seeing who you guys are going to get your lineups. Hopefully you guys have gotten a group. If you've got a group of friends, family, whatever you got going on. So for me personally, whenever I do fantasy football, I do two apps. I do DraftKings, and I also do NFL Fantasy, which is the one that's kind of more tied to the NFL network. It's not like Yahoo or ESPN. It's a different one. So I do DraftKings with my parents because we have like a little family bet going on. Is that whoever wins that at the end of the season, whoever wins, all the losers buy the winner dinner. So that's very fun to do. So we've been doing that for a few years now, and it's a lot of fun. I like DraftKings a lot just because I like how the setup we do. So what we do is you pick different players every week. You get a lineup. You get like a balance of I think that's like $50,000, not of real money, but it's like your salary cap is like $50,000. Then obviously all the players, depending on how they do, either cost more or less than the other. It's a lot of fun in my opinion. I think it's very different than just straight fantasy draft that you just pack. You just draft the players for the season and that's your team for the whole year. I do like how DraftKings kind of goes in that direction. I know a lot of people like DraftKings because they also, you can place bets on there, you can win money from them, however you like it, but I do like the aspect that you get a new team every week, so we've been doing that, and it's been easiest to kind of work with and keep track of, so I'm very excited for that to start up pretty soon, especially since the NFL season is right around the corner. Training camps are about to begin soon. A lot of teams are about to start making their way to training camp. That's very exciting. Hard Knocks already announced the Jets, and now for the other fantasy app that I use, NFL Fantasy, that's a group I have with some close friends of mine, and we just, we do a draft, we have some fun with it. So this year I'm very excited to, a couple new people are coming into the group this year to do the draft. I'm very, very excited, but I want to know, would you guys want me to do a live drafting? That'd be pretty cool as an idea, kind of, that was brought up to me by a buddy of mine that's actually in the same group, in the fantasy football group that I'm in this year. He asked you, are you going to do maybe a live episode of fantasy draft or something? I may have to think about it, but if you guys want to see that, that'd be pretty cool. I'll look into it and see what I can do. Or, of course, after I draft my fantasy team for the year, I'll upload it to you guys, and you guys can criticize me or let me know, which picks you would have who else would you would have gone with, or who else, what does your team look like? I can grade who you guys drafted. I know it's a real big dependency thing because sometimes you end up, with a good draft pick in fantasy, or you end up in the back of the line. I know last year I ended up towards more of the later round picks because I did really well in that previous season. So it's going to be 50-50 because I did okay last season, but I'm very excited. If I get a decent pick number, then I think I'll be fine. But if not, it may have to just depend on who's available and who's left, because I forgot how many I think we're having like 14 people in our group, if I remember correctly. It's something like that. But still, I'm very excited. I can't wait for it. I think we're doing our fantasy, like our little fantasy, like either draft party or whatever. I think we're going to do that towards more August, or we're going to see kind of when we can do it. I know we're probably going to do it either before training camp or after, like probably during the preseason, but definitely before we start the NFL season. I'm very excited for it, and I'm ready for it. So, but if you guys want to see my fantasy team, or if you guys want me to grade who you guys drafted in your fantasy leagues, let me know. Send me some DMs. Send me some screenshots of who you guys got. I'll definitely post who I got in my fantasy leagues, and maybe I'll do like a DraftKings thing where I kind of just do one every week. Like, here's my thing. Let me know what you guys think. I think that'd be pretty cool to kind of just show you guys who I have for DraftKings for that week, and you guys can go about it from there and kind of just let me know what you guys think about that. Also, what else is going on? Training camp is around the corner. Like I said, most teams are about to start reporting to training camp within the next week or so. I'm very excited about that. Like I said, School of Hard Knocks, it was announced last week that the Jets are going to get some TV time on School of Hard Knocks, Aaron Rodgers being there. We're all excited to see. It's going to be some pretty interesting rating stuff going on. The ratings are definitely going to be high because everyone wants to know what's going on with the Jets, what's going on with Aaron Rodgers, how's all that going. Everyone's going to be intrigued to see. I know I'm going to be watching it. I'm very excited for it. Aaron Rodgers a little bit, not so much, but, well, get over it, buddy. You're in New York. You're in the big time now. You're in New York City. Cameras, opinions are higher. The criticism even harsher than Wisconsin. It's going to be interesting to see, but, I'm pretty excited to watch the show and kind of just see how the Jets go about it. Like I said in the last episode, I do love Hard Knocks. I think it's very interesting to see the players outside of the football helmet. We get to see kind of like what they're like in their, and kind of like when you see them as normal people, I guess is a good way to put it. You kind of just see how they interact with each other and kind of different personalities than you would probably see like on the football field. Some of them you're surprised that they're very quiet, even though they're very energetic on the field, or vice versa, or they're the same way on the field like they are in real life. It's crazy. Very excited. But training camp is around the corner. Everyone's about to start reporting soon. I know for the Dallas Cowboys, they report, I believe, next week. Next week they're going to report to Oxford, California, which is where they always do their training camp every year. So I'm very excited to see, kind of what's going on with that, and kind of seeing who's going to make the cut and going into the preseason. And then also, before I begin on my first topic, I want to give a huge shout out to the Air Raiders. They won their game. They're in the TBT basketball tournament live on ESPN+. They beat the Purple Hearts in Lubbock. The Air Raiders is basically made up of a lot of Texas Tech alumni basketball players. I know a lot of the basketball players on this year's team was part of the 2019 National Championship run, so that's very exciting. Matt Mooney, Davide Moretti, Tariq Owens, and more. I believe Kyle Edwards is there, and some other players, and some more like Texas Tech alumni that are playing this year. So I'm very excited. They beat the Purple Hearts as of this recording, last night. So I believe they're playing Friday. They're going up against the New Mexico alumni, something like that. But congratulations to the Air Raiders and winning last night. As of this recording, they won last night, and congratulations to them. I'm very excited to keep seeing them playing. I'm excited to see the little reunion of the 2019 basketball championship team that's basically with the Air Raiders that was part of that championship run for Texas Tech. Very excited to see that. So, moving on to the first topic of today. It has been reported today that the NFL has agreed on the purchase of the Commanders. Yes, Dan Snyder is officially gone from the Washington Commanders. I know a lot of people have been pleading for it. They've been begging for it. Commander fans have been wanting him to go. I've been wanting him to go. That man is just not good for the organization. He has not done a lot with Washington. He tries. It's been a mess since he's been for the past few years. Obviously, what happened with RG3 and they basically broke him after they drafted him. What happened in the stadium problems with the the pipe bursting on NFL fans, and then the rail breaking on fans trying to high-five Jalen Hurts while he's trying to go back to the tunnel, everybody falling, the sexual assault allegations that was happening, which I thought was one of the bigger things whenever the story came out from the cheerleaders saying that, they had quote-unquote private auditions in front of Snyder and other representatives from the organization, making it look bad. I believe they found out in the investigation that he did do that, and there was sexual assault going on. And on top of that, I believe there was a case that he was lying about what they were making in the NFL books. It was like $11 million or something like that. So basically, Snyder was a shady guy running an NFL organization, and I believe he was the main reason, and he was kind of like the main component of what was in the way of the Commanders trying to take that next step forward. Just because, it was kind of his way or no way or something, kind of along those lines. And along with that, he's just not a good guy to have, running the organization, or at least being the face, of the owner, an owner of that organization that's having all these issues. And I believe another one was the changing the name from the Redskins to the Washington football team for a while because of the Native American thing, and then even he was saying, no, we're not going to change no matter what, and then FedEx withholding their sponsorship, about to lose money, he said, you know what, never mind, we'll do it. And now that he's gone, I'm blanking on the name on who bought him out, who ended up buying him for $6.05 million or $6.08 million, one of the two, bought him out for $6 million. Incredible. I'm very happy that the Commanders were able to finally move on from Dan Snyder. The Dan Snyder era is officially over, thankfully, just because I wouldn't say he's running that organization into the ground. He's just not really good business practice for the organization, not much going on. And then, especially right now with what's going on with the Commanders, not having really good seasons this past couple years after Kirk Cousins went away to Minnesota. They've been on a quarterback hunt for years. They still don't have one. They have Sam Howell and I think Jacoby Brissett, which who knows how that's going to go. Like I said, RG3, who got hurt because they overplayed him, even though he was on injury. The sexual assault allegations, sorry about that. And then on top of that, the whole money thing going on. It was just time for Snyder to go. It was just a matter of who was going to officially try to buy him out of the Commanders, and if he was ever going to sell, because I know he was pretty adamant about not selling the team. He wanted to be the owner for a very long time, and he was essentially he was never going to let it go. He was never going to let go of the organization, but finally he did, and the NFL today officially stamp of approve the purchase of the Commanders. So Dan Snyder is officially gone. So, goodbye to Dan Snyder. Hopefully this is going to open up new avenues for the Commanders with someone new in charge. They don't have to worry about Dan Snyder anymore. And maybe they can help rebuild the reputation of the Commanders, especially, with the sexual assault allegations and then Snyder withholding money from the NFL, and just seeing the damage that owner Dan Snyder did to that organization was just crumbling, and it was soon to be very negative towards the organization. It was just going to be a bad reflection overall to the Washington Commanders or football organization. But now with the new GM, the new owner coming in, maybe they can rebuild that reputation, kind of make things right with the allegations and the money issue that the NFL investigated and found out was true. I believe Snyder was fined $11 million, after they discovered all this stuff that was going on. It was something like that. But Snyder's gone. Hopefully the Commanders can now move on, and kind of rebuild that reputation for Washington. Alrighty, so next topic for today. Another NFL player has been high in the news, possibly causing a revolution. We don't know. We're talking about Saquon Barkley. So on Monday, I believe it was Monday, by 4 p.m. Eastern time, he has to have reached a deal with the New York Giants, at least on a long term, or he's going to have to sign the franchise tag, and that did not happen. So why not? So from what it has been reported, that the Giants gave him three different deals, and they all did not suffice to what Saquon Barkley has produced for the New York Giants. And now we're at a crossroads here, because he may hold out, he may not. He's kind of leaving cryptic messages, if he will, if he won't. He still has the power. I don't remember his full quote, but I know he mentioned that he can always just not play and then lose out on $10 million and then get fined after that, and kind of just see the Giants crumble. My problem with this thing is that they could have paid Saquon Barkley. They really could, but they paid Daniel Jones a big contract, and now they can't pay the actual best player on the team, which is Saquon Barkley. Saquon was already 40% of that whole offense. He was the main reason why the Giants were actually winning games. I believe someone brought up that like when he was doing well, the Giants weren't winning. I don't really think so, and it kind of depends on your definition of, doing well. If he can have a giant rushing game and still lose, I get that. But also, he doesn't have to always have a giant, rushing attack game. He doesn't have to rush for 150 on 15, 20 quick carries. He can always just be, that player that makes the impact. Like he does enough to get the offense moving, or he makes, the last second runs of, kind of put the Giants over the edge, which is what they did this past season. And he also helped, that offense grow this past year, because we were seeing what Daniel Jones can do without Saquon, which is not very much. And then we saw what he could do with Saquon, which is a little bit more. So with Saquon, they were able to open up more RPOs for the offense. They were able to pull read option plays, because what do you do with a read option? You either have to worry about Daniel or you have to worry about Saquon. 9 times out of 10, you're going to worry more about Saquon Barkley than Daniel Jones. Or the same thing with the RPOs when they make the reads. What do most defenses try to account for? Saquon Barkley, the running back, or I guess depending on the offense, but in this scenario, it's going to be Saquon. That's the player that you worry about the most when you're going up against an offense like that. So with him opening up the offense to more than just, hopefully Daniel Jones can throw 10 yards down the field without throwing an interception or throwing it in the dirt, they're able to open it up a little bit more. Why do teams run the ball? It's to throw. So it opens up the passing game as well. So now, with Saquon Barkley not getting a deal because he checks out all these boxes that we would want out of a running back, it's going to be interesting to see what they're going to do, because I know there's been like an article and reports with Austin Eckler and other running backs, saying that they may have to take a stand on this because running backs should be paid. They should be paid well enough for what they have done and what they do. And in the case of Saquon Barkley, I completely agree. I do believe he should get paid pretty good, because he's helped out the offense so much. He's helped out the Giants. He's the face of the organization for the New York Giants. He helps out with ticket sales, jersey sales, all that good stuff, getting seats and butts. You name it, that's what he does. He's a dynamic player. He's helped out that offense. Some other running backs that are noted that did not also sign a long-term deal was Josh Jacobs, who was one of the top running backs in the league last year, and Tony Pollard, who's rising to be the running back 1 for the Dallas Cowboys. Those were the other 2 that did not sign any long-term contracts, which we weren't sure. I believe Tony Pollard already said he's going to play under the franchise tag, and I believe Josh Jacobs is going to play under the franchise tag as well. So we'll have to see what's going to go on there. But in the case of Saquon Barkley, it's just that he needs to get paid something. And now I'm not advocating a 5-year contract, because we don't know what he'll look like in 5 years. And I mean, when you see what happens to running backs nowadays, they do break down a lot more and a lot quicker. We've seen it with running backs right now, Ezekiel Elliott, Dalvin Cook, you name it, we've seen it. And, I mean, Deebo Samuel was already starting to feel the effect, and he's not even a permanent running back. CMC, Christian McCaffrey, he was starting to have a lot of injuries in Carolina before he moved out to the 49ers. We were starting to see it with him. We've seen it with running backs that start to get injured. Not everyone could be like Frank Gore, who can play for such a long time. Not everyone could be like him. But, they can do enough to help out the team, or maybe they are a big part of the team, like Saquon is. He's about 40% of that whole offense, and he is what makes the offense run. So he should get paid, pretty wealthy. Now, I've been advocating maybe a 3-year deal max. I don't know about 4. I'd say maybe a 3-year contract under a certain amount of money, because they can always go back and restructure it in year 2 and see what they can do. At least they paid him for the short term, and they can figure out what they want to do. Probably if they want to give him another contract or an extension, that's going to be up to the Giants, but at least they used him to his full capability before he hits the free agency market. Because keep in mind, after this season, he can go be a free agent or he can get franchise tagged again. We'll have to see what's going to happen. But kind of just seeing what's going on with that is just, in my opinion, Saquon should get paid because he is the most important. Now, if it was any other quarterback that wasn't, like, if he was playing with, then it might be a whole other argument. But for him being with the Giants, he's the best player on the team. He needs to get some money. Now, another question that's been brought up that I've kind of been seeing a little bit everywhere is, on the Giants team, who's more valuable, Daniel Jones or Saquon? I've been advocating it's Saquon. Now, truth or reality, the quarterback is always going to be the most important on the team. So by default, it's going to be Daniel Jones, because from how we saw it play out with the 49ers in Philadelphia in the playoff game, you need at least a competent quarterback. Even if you have all this talent, you don't have a competent quarterback, it ain't going to work. And we've seen that. So by default, Daniel Jones is the most important, but who's the most valuable is Saquon, because like I said, he's already 40% of the offense. I've already said the stats on Daniel Jones with and without Saquon. He throws a lot better with Saquon Barkley being in the backfield than he does without. I've seen it, throughout his whole career. With and without Saquon, he's better with Saquon than he is without him, because when he didn't play with Saquon, when he didn't play for the whole year, he was not good. He wasn't. Even this past season, only 15 touchdowns to, I think, 5 interceptions still isn't great, because Justin Fields threw more touchdowns, Russell Wilson threw more touchdowns. There's a lot of players that out-threw Daniel Jones in touchdowns. I believe the most outstanding stat he had was he had quite a few rushing touchdowns because that offense opened up a little bit more. But who is that because? It's because of Saquon, because they were able to open up the playbook a little bit more and use Daniel Jones' athletic ability with Saquon. But obviously it only works if Saquon Barkley is there, because most teams that are going to go up against the Giants are going to fear Saquon more than going to fear Daniel Jones. I've even gone about that, that mindset as well as a Cowboys fan when we play the Giants. I'm not scared of Daniel Jones. I'm really not. As a Cowboys fan, I'm not. Or even any other team that plays against the Giants, I'm not scared of Daniel Jones. The one I'm scared of is Saquon Barkley, because he can just go off in the game. He can just make a defensive line, pay. He can burst through windows. He's an all-around great running back. He's probably one of the top running backs in the league right now, and that's who I most fear, because he's so good. And defenses plan for him than they plan for Daniel Jones, because he's not that great, in all honesty, without Saquon Barkley. Now, did he take a little bit of a step forward this past season? Yes, but that's when Saquon Barkley played the whole season, and he was able to at least take a little bit of that jump forward, and now they see what kind of offense they can run with Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, not just with Daniel Jones, because if they put someone else in the backfield with Daniel Jones, it just ain't going to work. I feel like that offense isn't going to run as efficiently without Saquon Barkley. Yes, they added Darren Waller and Hyatt from Tennessee. They kind of added some weapons, for Daniel Jones to throw to. But at the end of the day, Saquon is that offense, and he needs to be paid as the same amount as, as much as he's valuable. And he's the most valuable on that whole team, in my opinion. It's going to be Saquon. Like I said, sadly, by default, it's going to be Daniel Jones, because he's the quarterback, and the quarterback is the most important position on the field. But in terms of who's going to be more valuable, Saquon or Daniel Jones, or who would I want more, it's going to be Saquon, because he's proven time and time again that he can be a top running back, because he is a top running back, and he can help the offense, which is what he did this past season. Now, granted, they did get a better coach who was able to fit a scheme that fits Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley, but Saquon Barkley was able to make it work. And from what I've seen whenever I watch games for the Giants and they were struggling because defenses were stopping Saquon Barkley. If Saquon Barkley was not having a great game, neither were the Giants, because the Giants could not figure it out either. So there was that blockade with, when Saquon was not having a great game, the Giants' offense was not flourishing either, because they were struggling to move the ball as well. There were times where maybe Daniel Jones, he broke out a run or he made a good throw and they were able to kind of get some momentum. But essentially, if Saquon Barkley was not having a great game, then that offense just wasn't going to move as efficiently as he does if he had a great game. So with that, Saquon Barkley is definitely the most valuable player the Giants have, and they need to pay him some kind of money, or he's going to hold out. Especially since now we're hearing about this running back possible revolution that they're having. I know Austin Eckler already made a comment. He's playing under the franchise tag, I believe. Tony Pollard's playing. He didn't say anything, but I know he's playing under the franchise tag. Josh Jacobs, who was the best thing out of the Raiders last season. King Henry, who's been the best thing about the Tennessee Titans, period. So, and now with D-Hop coming in, it's probably going to help them out a little bit more. But the running backs are kind of rallying together and, kind of forming this little alliance to see, what they can do. I read an article that Austin Eckler said that we may have to push back, and Saquon Barkley might be in on, he's in the group chat, with all the running backs in the league. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to end up happening. I don't know if it's going to result in running backs holding out. I highly doubt it, because it's a lot of money if you hold out and you miss training camp. It's going to be a lot of money that you're going to end up owing, and at the end of the day, you're going to either want to play and get a contract or not, but it's going to depend on what's really going to happen and what the NFL is going to do about the situation. Alrighty, so next topic, I said we begin the Cowboys talk right now. So some interesting news that came out of this week. Zack Martin, one of the best guards, if not the best right guard in all of football, has been reported, and there's a rumor that he may not show up to training camp. Why is this an issue? I'll tell you why. The best guard in the NFL resides with the Dallas Cowboys. He has been the most consistent guard in the NFL. I believe he's about to turn 33, and he doesn't look like he's skipped a beat at all over these last few years. Now, let me tell you, Zack Martin right now is on a 6-year, $84 million contract. However, he is not happy with his current contract, and he wants it to be restructured, and he may hold out of this. He may not go to training camp, and he may hold out, until the season starts. Will he do that? I don't think so, but I'll get to that in a minute. So when you kind of look at it, when he signed the contract in 2018, so 6 years, $84 million, I believe he was like one of the top paid offensive linemen in the NFL at the time, but then obviously Quentin Nelson got some money, and then more and more players started getting more offensive guards, started getting paid more and more. Now, Saquon Barkley, now Zack Martin feels like he needs to get paid a little bit more because he's been the most consistent player on the Dallas Cowboys team, who this past season alone, he allowed 0 sacks and only allowed 12 QB pressures, which is pretty good. It's top in the NFL. And he wants to get paid as a top guard in the NFL because he feels like he's been living up to his contract, which I agree. I think he's been the most consistent player, and he's definitely helped out the Great Wall of Dallas. I believe he's helping out Tyler Smith right now in his position at left guard. I remember there was a game where he had to come in at right tackle. So you can imagine running a toss play with Zack Martin running at you. It's absolutely terrifying, and he's been doing great, especially at his age, almost being 33, and he's been able to keep up for a very long time, and he's been this consistently good, throughout his career. I believe, this past year from Madden, he got put on the 99 club. Congratulations, Zack Martin, by the way. So, do I think he should get paid? I believe he should get a little bit more. I don't know how much more, because the thing I want to consider, about him getting a restructure of his contract or whatever he wants, is that we got to consider 3 names that are going to come up next season that may hit the salary cap. Number 1 is CeeDee Lamb. He's about to run out his rookie contract. Trayvon Diggs is about to expire his rookie contract. Tony Pollard's franchise tag is over next year. So those are some 3 top names that I would consider, having to think about how much we're going to be able to give Zack Martin, at least give him a raise or restructure the contract. Because it is going to be more expensive if they just sign him another deal. They're going to add up, it's going to be a little bit more money, especially since they're still paying Dak Prescott right now. Who knows how much they still owe Ezekiel Elliott in guarantees since they cut him. They did make a little bit of salary cap room with them cutting Zeke. So it's going to be, maybe they can kind of wiggle some kind of restructure to help out Zack Martin, at least maybe this season and maybe next. It's kind of crazy because I would never think this would come out of Zack Martin. I would never think that this would ever happen, because right now he's making $13.5 million this season, but he's making $7 million less from the top guard, who I'm blanking on his name, but he makes about $20 million a year. So he probably feels that I should get paid at least almost $20 million. But we're going to see what he wants, and we're going to see maybe what's kind of his price range before training camp, which starts next week for the Dallas Cowboys. So we have a little bit of time, and we also still have about 52 days before the NFL season starts. So we have time to restructure the contract. Will he hold out, though, which is one of the questions that's being asked, is if he's going to hold out. I don't really think so, because on top of the fact that he would get fined $50,000 a day for missing training camp, on top of that, he's a leader in the locker room and on that offense and overall just for the Dallas Cowboys organization. He's just a leader of that team, so I don't think he would ever put his team in a position where he's not going to be there and present to help out the Dallas Cowboys, especially since they are looking pretty good and they're kind of excited for the season. So with that, I don't think he will hold out. I think that he's just expressing that, hey, I should get paid a little bit more, Jerry. Kind of fork it over a little bit, especially since they paid Dak Prescott all this money. They paid Ezekiel Elliott a lot of money, which I don't know how much they still owe Zeke in guarantees. And they still are paying Dak Prescott. And out of everyone that's been on that team, Zack Martin has been the most consistent, and he's still probably the top guard in the NFL, or if not, one of the best. So I think he should get some sort of maybe a bonus, or maybe if they do restructure his contract, give him a little bit, probably closer to, if he's making $13.5 million this season, I would say probably close to 15 or 16. I wouldn't try to put him in 20 because then who knows what the salary cap, because like I said, keep in mind, we still have 3 other players that we're going to have to see if we can even pay, which is CD, Trayvon, and Tony Pollard. If Tony Pollard ends up having another great season, we're going to have to find a way to pay him. CeeDee Lamb is our number 1 wide receiver. Jerry Jones loves him. Mike McCarthy, Dak. I don't really see them trying to move on from CeeDee Lamb and try to find another number 1 wide receiver. CeeDee loves being in Dallas, so he's probably going to get a contract. And Trayvon Diggs, who's emerged as one of the top corners in the league, definitely one of the best ball hawks in the league. You don't want him to go anywhere, so they're probably going to try to give him a contract, and then we're going to have to see what happens with Tony Pollard. So I think that this whole kind of contract restructure and all this stuff going on with Zack Martin and trying to see what they're going to do with him and see how much they're going to pay him is going to be a little bit of a dicey one, just because those 3 players are going to be up for contract negotiations and probably deals and stuff like that. And then behind them is going to be Micah Parsons, who's coming up soon for his contract. So there's a lot of people on that team that may want a paycheck. And Zack Martin's already has a deal that's set for, I believe, a couple more years. So it's going to be interesting to see what Jerry Jones does, but Jerry Jones can make it happen. He's a businessman at heart. He can make it work, and I'm sure he can meet in the middle with Zack Martin and his agent. Just like I said, I think this is a little bit more like he's expressing his frustration. I don't think it's going to lead to him, holding out, because he's not. I believe he loves his team way too much to do that. I think it's just it's one of those Saquon Barkley's power move is, I can always hold out and not come back until I get paid. That's always an option. But like I said, there's going to be negative repercussions if he misses out on training camp, which is $50,000 per day he's missed, and then on top of that, how much he'll get fined for missing the season. So, or how much he'll miss out on for not playing the season. So I don't think he'll hold out. And I also don't believe he's going to miss training camp. I think he will be there. I just think he wants the Dallas Cowboys to know, I'm not happy. Let's get a contract going. Alrighty, so next topic for this podcast episode. So this one is going to be wrapping up the NFC on who I think will win the division. So we're stopping at the last one with the Dallas Cowboys, the NFC East. So here's who I have winning the NFC East. It's going to be a close call. I think it's not going to be a blowout like it was last year, but I also don't think it's going to be, it's going to come down to the last game of the season. I think around 15-16 is when it's going to wrap up who's going to win the division. But I have the Dallas Cowboys winning the division. Here's why. They're going to be in a race with the Eagles. Let's start with the other 2. The Commanders, I don't really see them making a splash. They have talent, but their quarterback situation, they're hoping Sam Howell can get it done, or Jacoby Brissett, but who knows what's going to happen. And then, I know Ron Rivera's job is, he's probably going to be in the hot seat this season, so we're going to have to wait and see. Eric Bieniemy is going to be coming in, to help out on that offense, but I still don't think it's going to be enough to get them, to win the division. And then the Giants are probably going to finish 3rd, because they may finish 4th if they don't have Saquon Barkley, but I still don't think they're gonna do well enough to pass the Cowboys or the Eagles, or at least get close to them. Maybe they have a chance to win a wild card spot like they did this past year, but I don't see them possibly winning the division. So it's gonna come down to Dallas and the Eagles. Here's what the problem is with the Philadelphia Eagles. So number 1, they lost both coordinators. They lost the offensive coordinator, who is now the head coach in Indianapolis, and then they lost the defensive coordinator to Arizona to be the head coach over there. So they don't have coordinators. I believe they gave a promotion to Brian Johnson, who was on Nick Sirianni's team for the past 2 years. So now he's going to be the offensive coordinator with Nick Sirianni. And I don't know what's going to happen on defense. But they were losing both coordinators, which I believe was a key factor in how well they did this past season. Because now they're going to have to possibly change stuff up, especially since the offensive coordinator is probably going to take some stuff that Philly did over to Indianapolis with their new young quarterback in Anthony Richardson. So that's already a big problem, I think, in my opinion, is that they do not have both their coordinators, and now they're hiring 2 new people to come on in. The next problem, they lost a lot of key players in free agency on the defensive side. C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Kepps, and some other players. So they lost them. I will give them a prop that they did re-sign Darius Slay, big play Slay, even though they were about to let him go in free agency, or they were about to cut him, which I thought was really dumb, but they kept him. But they still lost a lot of key players on that defense. So that's what's going to hurt them the most, because when I saw them in that Super Bowl game, and when I saw them kind of play certain teams that would outscore them, like the Dallas Cowboys, whenever they went to AT&T Stadium and they were able to drop 40 on them, and then the Kansas City Chiefs being able to, they dropped a lot of points on the Eagles. We saw that defense, even with the talent that they had, if you had the right offense, you can beat them. The only issue that was frustrating was the offense was scoring every time with the opposing offense, so it was hard to try to outscore them. But that defense did have problems. That's why when people would say they're one of the best defenses in the league, it would be hit or miss, because there will be games where they do really well, but then there will be games where they allow like 30, 40 points, which is what we saw, and we saw that in the Super Bowl. They allowed a lot of points to Kansas City, who on paper has a lesser offense than Philadelphia did, because Philadelphia had two really good wide receivers in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, Miles Sanders. They had a great offensive line led by Jason Kelce, Dallas Goedert, a top tight end in the league. They had weapons compared to what Patrick Mahomes had in Kansas City. But their defense, who had all this talent, still allowed Kansas City on a one-legged Patrick Mahomes to drop about 40 points. 30, 40 points on them in the Super Bowl. So now, losing the coordinator that was leading that defense, now he's gone, and now they're losing all that talent that they had. Who knows what's going to look like now. Now, who they drafted, Nolan Smith and Jalen Carter, to come in, they're not going to play this season. That's kind of the problem. I like the picks, but they're not going to play, because they re-signed Brandon Graham and Fletcher Cox for another year to come on in and maybe, show them the ropes, help them out, kind of get them ready for what they're about to go up against in the NFC East and in the future of their NFL careers. Problem, Jalen Carter, who showed up to his pro day overweight, he had off-the-field problems because he got in that car accident. He had the whole bad attitude when he was going into the interviewing process for the draft, when he was saying, I only talk to teams with top 10 picks, which hurt him a lot because he kind of fell a little bit. But, it's a dependency on if he's going to be good. Nolan Smith, I think, will be the better of the two, just because he's a little bit more disciplined from what I saw. He's going to be at the linebacker position, but like I said, Brandon Graham is still going to be there, and so is Fletcher Cox. So those two players are not even going to play this season. Maybe they'll get in some reps that may be second string, but they're not going to come in. So Eagles fans are going to have to wait and see if they're going to be good for their draft picks. Now, with all that said and done for the Philadelphia Eagles, yes, they still have a pretty good offense. They kind of lost out with Miles Sanders going to Carolina, but they brought in Rashad Penny. Jalen Hurts is still going to be there and be dynamic, and they still have some pretty good wide receivers, and Dallas Goedert's still there. So I don't think it's really problems with the offense. The problem is going to be with their defense, because their offense can score all the points that they want, but if their defense allows more points, they're going to lose every time. And, it worked a little bit last season, but it didn't work in the Super Bowl trying to outscore Kansas City, because Kansas City always fired back, and they were able to take the lead and take it, and Patrick Mahomes was able to get, drive downfield and score with little time left for Jalen Hurts to work with. So it can happen. You can beat that Philadelphia team, because that defense wasn't as great as some people thought. They had moments where they looked like a top defense, but then there were other moments where they allowed so many points. So that's the issue with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I think that's what's going to be the ultimate demise of the Philadelphia Eagles, not winning the division this year. They probably will take they'll probably take a wild card spot, but I don't think they're going to win the division. Now let's move on over to my Dallas Cowboys. So first up, they filled the biggest weakness, in my opinion, that the team had, which was cornerback 2. Because my problem last season was that, aside of Trayvon Diggs, when Anthony Brown got hurt, we did not have a good cornerback to back him up. Anthony Brown was already picked on a lot last season because no one wanted to throw the ball to Trayvon Diggs, because that man's a ball hawk. He can go after the ball, and so they picked on Anthony Brown a lot, who got burnt some of the time. There were some of the times he made great plays, and there were other times where he got burnt and it did not look good. Or they would line up their top receiver against him. I know there were a couple times in the Eagles game they tried to line up A.J. Brown with Anthony Brown, and they put Devontae Smith with Trayvon Diggs, so that way they can get that mismatch with Anthony Brown. Same thing with the Commanders. They would put Scary Terry on the side of Anthony Brown, and he would beat him some of the time. So now with the Dallas Cowboys adding Stephon Gilmore, who's coming in, who's one of the best cornerbacks in the league still, that helps out a lot on that defense. They added a strength to a strength because they already have a top defense right now on paper. They have one of the top defenses in the league. And now they just added in one of the best corners in the game, along with Trayvon Diggs, who's emerging to be one of the top corners in the game. They put both of them on opposite sides of each other, especially since you see the talent that's building up in the NFC, like with Seattle adding Jackson Smith and Jigba to their offense. The 49ers, who have Debo, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, they have a dynamic offense. The Eagles, who have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith, they have some key players, and that's not even including who else we have to go up against this season. So adding Stephon Gilmore to that defense is just going to be a big help, especially since we don't have to solely rely on Trayvon Diggs, covering their top wide receiver, because all offenses have to do is adjust and put their top wide receiver against Anthony Brown. So with Stephon Gilmore being there, the secondary is set. I think that now that they added that strength to the biggest weakness, which is what I thought was our biggest problem on defense, was cornerback 2. Now you add him with the safeties up top with Malik Hooker and Donovan Wilson, who re-signed this season, which was another big signing for the Dallas Cowboys. That secondary set. Then you have the linebacking core of Van Der Esch with Micah Parsons, and I believe they're going to add in the LSU linebacker that's coming in, or they're going to put in Overshot, one of the two there. And then you have our defensive front, who just drafted Mozzie Smith, who's going to be a great run stuffer, especially against that really crazy Philadelphia play where they come in and they push Jalen Hurts all the way past everybody. He's going to be great run stuffer, because that was one of the things that the Dallas Cowboys suffered from, was run defense. They weren't the best at stopping the run last year, but now they added him, and I believe they extended another defensive tackle that we got from the Raiders, so they're both going to be there, helping the front, and then D-Law and Sam Williams is going to be there at the defensive end, with Micah Parsons also hunting for the quarterback. So that's just defense alone. That's just that side of the ball. Let's move on over to the offense. The biggest problem I thought we had on offense is that we did not have another wide receiver to help out CeeDee Lamb. It was CeeDee Lamb or bust, because Jalen Tolbert did not do well. They were relying on CeeDee or Michael Gallup, and sometimes it just really didn't work. We saw the interceptions that Dak threw. So now they go on and add Brandon Cooks, who is a deep field threat. He's a pretty good wide receiver. He did really well with the Patriots. He went to try to help out Houston for a couple years. He's a journey guy, but he's a really good wide receiver. I was very surprised that he just hops from team to team every year, but he's pretty good and he's pretty dynamic. So you put him next to CeeDee Lamb, who is a threat either way. He can beat you downfield. He can beat you in the slot. He can run inside. He can run out routes. He's a pretty dynamic wide receiver, and then you put Michael Gallup at wide receiver 3, who, he has a little bit of speed, and he's coming off his ACL injury, but now, being at wide receiver 3, it can help him out a little bit. He doesn't have to be on the field so much, and maybe he can give his knee a little bit of a rest, and he doesn't have to try to beat, a safety and a quarter downfield, because that's what we have Brandon Cooks for. So adding Brandon Cooks to the wide receiver game is going to change everything for Dak. On top of reports saying that Mike McCarthy, who's taking over offensive play calls, is gonna simplify the offense for Dak instead of making it super complicated compared to what Kellen Moore was doing with all the crazy formations and what they were doing. He wants to simplify the offense for Dak Prescott and see if he can thrive in a much simpler offense, which Dak is liking. There have been reports that he's happy with Mike McCarthy calling the plays. He thinks he's doing a great job. We'll have to see come the football season starting. But simplifying the offense for Dak, which should help Dak Prescott, thrive a little bit more, probably lesser the turnovers. They want to run the ball a little bit more, even though they were ranked 6th last year in rushing. But they want to run the ball more, especially since they added a bunch of new running backs in Ronald Jones. They added Deuce Vaughn, Malik Davis who's coming in. So that running back, basically that depth at running back is very deep. And on top of that, they added some more weapons to tight end. So we already have Ferguson and Hendershot, who Ferguson I think is a great blocking tight end, and he can go out in the flats and go get some tough yards. Hendershot, who's a little bit more he's a little bit more lean than Ferguson, but he looks like he can play outside, he can play inside slot. He looks like a really good receiving tight end. And then on top of that, in the draft, we got Shoemaker from Michigan, who did pretty well last season for the Michigan Wolverines, is coming to Dallas. I know I wanted Dalton Kincaid, but Shoemaker is not going to be that bad, to add to that offense. He did really, like I said, he did really well in Michigan. I know he had a couple of good big plays against TCU in the college football playoffs, helping out with Michigan and Harbaugh. So adding him to the tight end room, just adds even more fuel to the fire. So there's a bunch of new guys and young guys, but they're going to be contributing to the offense and the defense compared to, who the Philadelphia has, who aren't going to play, such as Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith. They're not even going to play. Mozzie Smith at least is coming in to make an effort. Shoemaker's probably going to come in and make it make an effect a little bit, because I think he can do a little bit of both of Ferguson and Hendershot. He's a little bit of both. He can block and he can be a great receiving tight end. Ferguson is a great blocker and he can run the flat, and Hendershot looks like he's going to be a great receiving tight end. So we have 3 dynamic people at tight end, and they're very young, so that's even better. So they're all on rookie deals, I believe. And then you have the running back situation with Ronald Jones, Tony Pollard, Deuce Vaughn, and Malik Davis. So you're going to have a pretty large running back room behind Dak Prescott, and then Mozzie Smith coming in for defensive tackle. So you add all these together, I think that Dallas added a lot more than Philadelphia did. I think Philadelphia lost more than Dallas. So I think that's what's going to be the key difference in it. I know the Dallas Cowboys lost McGovern. That's why Tyler Smith is going to move to left guard, and then Tyrone Smith's going to left tackle. We'll have to see how long that's going to last. But overall, what Dallas has done and what they built, they lost a little bit, but they were able to rebuild more than probably Philadelphia did, is going to be the difference maker. Because with Philadelphia losing some key players on defense and Dallas adding more key players to their defense, it's gonna help them be able to stop those dynamic offenses that are in the NFC this year and all the weapons that everyone's building up on. So I'm very excited for the season, and that's why I believe the Dallas Cowboys will win the NFC East. We also have the fact that we have not had a back-to-back winner in such a long time, so we have that in our back pocket too. But at the end of it, I believe the Dallas Cowboys will win the division. It's going to be probably towards like week 15, week 16, maybe 17 is when they're going to decide the winner. But the Eagles are going to be right on the tail. But I think they lost way too much to make as big of an impact as they did this past Super Bowl run. So I don't think that they're going to have like that great of a year again. I think they may take a step back from the Super Bowl. I don't think it's going to be like a Super Bowl hangover, but it's definitely going to be a little bit more different compared to last season, since the Eagles did lose both their coordinators, and now they're running with a new offensive coordinator with Nick Sirianni, who's still there, which is still good. They still have Nick Sirianni, which is not bad. Jalen Hurts and that offense is still there, but the defense is what is going to be hurting the most. And then for Dallas, they added to the defense, and they also added to the offense. All it's going to depend on is which quarterback is going to do better, Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott. With this offense, and hopefully the simplified offensive schemes is going to help out Dak Prescott. In the end, I believe the Dallas Cowboys are going to win the NFC East. But alrighty, everyone, that's going to wrap things up on this episode of the CAV Sports Podcast. This episode will be up on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music. Make sure you follow me on all my social media at CAV Sports or CAV Sports Podcast. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram Threads. And let me know if you guys want me to post, I talked about a little bit earlier, my fantasy team. So I have a group of friends that I'm doing a fantasy team for the year, and then I also do DraftKings with my family, which I'm very excited about, by the way. Let me know if you guys want me to post for DraftKings who is my lineup for every week. I think that'll be a lot of fun to see who you guys want, who you guys are kind of seeing who I'm going to have for the week, and go about it that route. And then obviously who I'm going to have for the year with my friends on the other side and who's going to be on my team. But thank you guys so much for tuning in. I'll catch you guys in the next episode.